What we saw in that Senate hearing between Senator Tim Kaine and nominee Pete Hegseth wasn't just an uncomfortable moment or another Washington soundbite. It was something much deeper, a confrontation between personal accountability and public responsibility. A moment where character, truth, and leadership met under the harsh light of Democratic scrutiny. Now, on the surface, it looked like Kaine was grilling Hegseth about his private life, about infidelity, allegations of assault, and questionable judgment. But beneath that, the senator was doing something profoundly democratic. He was asking whether someone seeking immense public power can be trusted to hold that power ethically. Because the truth is, leadership isn't just about policy or paperwork. It's about the kind of person you are when no one's watching. When Kaine asked Hegseth about the 2017 Monterey incident, when he was still married to his second wife but had just fathered a child with another woman, the room grew tense. Hegseth's immediate defense was that he had been fully cleared. That phrase, fully cleared, is worth pausing on. Because too often, public figures hide behind it as if legality erases morality. But being cleared of a charge doesn't clear you of poor judgment. It doesn't wipe away betrayal. It doesn't heal the breach of trust. And that was the subtext of Kaine's questioning. He wasn't acting as a prosecutor. He was acting as a representative of the people, holding up a mirror to someone who wants to oversee the nation's military, to remind him that the job demands more than a clean criminal record. It demands credibility, humility, and moral steadiness. Democrats have long argued that integrity and transparency are not optional, they're the foundation of democracy. The Senate confirmation process isn't just a formality, it's one of the last remaining checks the public has to ensure that the people who wield power are answerable for their past actions. Kaine's line of questioning was uncomfortable precisely because accountability is supposed to be uncomfortable. That's how it works. When Hegseth repeatedly dodged questions about whether he believed sexual assault or domestic violence should disqualify someone from being Secretary of Defense, the hearing took on a more serious tone. Because this wasn't a hypothetical. It was a test of moral clarity. Violence against women isn't theoretical. It's a crisis that has plagued the Department of Defense for decades, from military academies to active duty bases. To hear a potential Secretary of Defense hesitate on whether such conduct should disqualify a candidate is more than tone-deaf, it's alarming. Kaine's persistence wasn't about personal attack. It was about leadership philosophy. He was testing whether Hegseth understood that the Department of Defense isn't just a bureaucracy, it's an institution built on trust, discipline, and example. Every decision a secretary makes ripples down to the youngest recruits who need to believe that integrity is real, not performative. When a leader minimizes misconduct as false claims without even acknowledging the moral weight of the allegations, it sends a dangerous signal that accountability only applies to others. And that's precisely what Democrats have been fighting against for years, the normalization of denial, the dismissal of credible allegations, and the erosion of public trust under the guise of political persecution. Kaine also touched on something that cuts right to the core of transparency: non-disclosure agreements. When he asked whether Hegseth's ex-wives had signed NDAs and whether he'd released them from those agreements, it wasn't idle curiosity. It was a vital question about honesty in public service. NDAs have long been used as shields to silence victims, conceal misconduct, and protect reputations at the expense of truth. For someone seeking to lead the Department of Defense, which has faced repeated scandals around sexual harassment and abuse, this question carried enormous weight. The hearing exposed a recurring theme in American politics: the attempt to separate private character from public responsibility. But Democrats understand that the two are inseparable. How a person handles power in private often predicts how they'll handle it in office. Infidelity, deception, and moral evasiveness are not just personal mistakes. They are windows into how someone views commitment, loyalty, and truth itself. When Kaine pointed out that Hegseth failed to disclose the criminal investigation, settlement, and cash payment to the Trump transition team, he was exposing a deeper issue: concealment. When someone hides critical facts during vetting, it's not merely an oversight. It's a breach of trust. And trust is the oxygen of democracy.